Hello and welcome to The Discriminating Gamer, the board game review show that Hannibal Lecter once referred to as disconcerting. My name is Cody, and today I'm going to take a look at a game that comes to us from our friends in Russia. That's right, I'm talking about Armada Invincible from Zvezda Games. In Armada Invincible from Zvezda Games, two players take on the roles of ships in the 16th century. You can either be an English ship or a Spanish ship, about the time of the Spanish Armada, 1588. Each player gets their own ship card and orders card, and these cards are laminated so you can write on them with a dry erase marker. Then, of course, you're going to get your ship's model that is going to fight for your cause on the board. Now, first thing, you're going to pick a scenario which has various objectives in it. Then what you're going to do is set up the board appropriately. And the maps connect together with these little blue connectors that you kind of space around the board. Now you also have to determine where the wind is coming from, and the scenarios generally tells you in which direction to place the wind. Now each of the spaces on the board is a hex, so you're going to aim the wind toward one of those hexes, and the wind direction is very important. Now, your ship card has a lot of information. It has your masts, it has your cannons, it has your durability points. Essentially, each side of the ship, port, starboard, and your stern, how many hits it can take before the ship is destroyed. The ship's card also contains other important information, like your ship's hold capacity, how many sailors, pikemen, musketmen you can have on deck, and various effects that will happen if officers are killed in some of the expanded rules. You also have information like your crew's defense when fighting boarding parties, and you also have your firefighting damage and how well you can take out fires on board your ship. Now, the game is played over a series of rounds, and what you and your opponent are going to do is secretly you're going to write on your orders card exactly how you're going to move. You're going to move straight, you're going to turn to the port, to starboard, you're going to sit still. So for that, you have to determine, first of all, where your mast is going to be. Your mast is, you don't drop any of your sails, you're going to hold still that turn, and that's going to help you in combat-wise, it's going to give you some greater accuracy. Or you can have your sails at half-mast, in which case you're going to receive a lower number of movement tokens, but it doesn't affect your accuracy at all. It doesn't give you any plus or negative modifiers. Or you can go full sails, in which case you're going to receive more movement tokens, but it is going to hurt your roll on your attacks a little bit. Now, movement is, of course, dependent on the wind. Now, if you're moving into the wind, it's going to cost you 3 movement points for every hex you move into the wind. If you're moving away from the wind, if it's at your back, it's only going to cost you 1 movement point. And if you're moving at a crosswind, it's going to cost you 2 movement points to move straight or to turn. Now, you're going to reveal your orders simultaneously, and then you're going to move simultaneously as well. Now, there are rules for collisions. If you run into the other ship, it's going to cause damage to the other ship. Otherwise, all things being equal, if there's some space between you, you're going to roll your cannons. Now, each ship also comes with some other cards. You have a card that specifically says what you are firing. So you've got different kinds of ammunition. You've got cannonballs, you've got chain shot, you've got grape shot. So are you trying to just damage that ship? Are you trying to knock out the masts? Are you trying to rake the crew with your grape shot? And you're going to choose what you want to do. Then you're going to go ahead and consult your cannons. Now, at the beginning of the game, your cannons are fully charged. And you're going to go ahead and roll 1 d20 for each of your cannons. Then you're going to consult a chart on your ship's card that says at the range, what you're going to hit at or below. Also, your mast can have some modifiers there. There can be some modifiers on other things, but generally you're going to score hits if it's on or below that number. The enemy is going to take hits on their durability. On their port, their starboard, or their stern, they're going to cross off durability sections. And critically, if all the durability sections are destroyed on either side of a cannon, that cannon is knocked out of commission. Now, after both sides have fired and taken damage, you're going to go ahead and, once again, move into the next phase, where you plan for what your orders are going to be. You also have to begin to charge back up your cannons, meaning you have to put a little cross through there to show that it's gaining power, you're preparing your cannons. Once they're ready, you can fire any of the ready cannons on your next turn, but it's going to take a while. Now, you're going to keep doing this, you're going to keep playing this out over rounds of planning your movements, moving, firing at each other, until the scenario's objectives have been met by one side or the other. Now, if at any time all of the durability points on any side of the ship, port, starboard, or stern, is completely filled up, that ship is sunk. Now, there are also many, many other rules that factor into it as well. Like I say, you can bring up your pikemen and your musketmen on the deck to start firing at your enemies. There's rules that if some of your sailors get hit, you roll die to determine if any officers die, and if they do, that's going to give you some negative modifiers. Your ship can catch on fire. You've got to do damage control, try to put those fires out. There's just different fun and interesting things here that make this game feel like an authentic 16th century naval battle. So what do I think of Armada Invincible from Zvezda Games? Well, first of all, I must tell you, this game reminds me a lot of one of my favorite games, and that is Leviathans. Now, Leviathans kind of has this alternate history take where you've got these kind of heavier-than-air battleships that are flying around, roughly World War I era. And that uses the same mechanic of the dry erase cards to show damage, to show, what weapons have been used. So it's very, very similar in that regard. Now, this has a lot more with regards to the kind of the crews and the musketeers and sailors that you bring up and how they work. So it's a different game, but it does have that very similar mechanic of using the dry erase cards and maneuvering around the board like that. It's very similar. The ship's models in Armada Invincible are just gorgeous. These are beautiful, beautiful models. There's incredible detail for what these are in the sails, in the rigging, and the little cannons that are on the deck. It's very, very cool. But at the same time, they don't come pre-assembled. You have to assemble these things yourself. I personally did not really. I'm not confident in my ability to assemble things like that. So a friend of mine, Mr. George Anderson, put those together for me, and God bless him. And they look just spectacular. But they're fun to play with because they look so good, but they're fragile. And the way the sails are connected to the rigging, to the masts, sometimes the sails come off. The plastic sails come off, and they're just very delicate. And you're almost scared to play with them because they feel like they might fall apart if you just touch them. And that's sad because you want a level of, I guess, durability in these models. And don't get me wrong, they're not so fragile that you touch them and the whole thing's going to fall apart. Don't misunderstand me. But just some of the little things can come undone, and that's a little frustrating while you're playing it. In some of the footage, you're seeing the models without the decals. There's decals you can put on them to really make them look beautiful. I just haven't done that yet. I'm sure I will at some point down the line. Gameplay itself is pretty intense. It's pretty straightforward. It really resembles naval strategy in that, you're really rewarded when you cross the T. You bring all of your broadside to bear while you're going against just the guy's, the front of his ship, his bow. And that kind of stuff is really cool. There's a real tactical considerations here. And each turn, you have to consider, well, I want to move on this side because I got all my guns ready, but, that means I got to move into the wind. I'm going to have to spend more movement points here. Maybe I should just wait and try to maneuver this way. So you really are constantly thinking these things out and thinking these things through. You're thinking about range. Well, how can I maneuver myself into a good range where my shots are really going to count? But at the same time, if you maneuver your broadside to his broadside, or you bring your bow to his broadside, there's going to be problems for you. So you've got all these calculations going on in your head. It's fun. It's exciting. There's also some rules. Some of the map tiles had land on them, and there's kind of rules for running aground. There's rules for hiding in cover. There's a lot going on here, and while it seems kind of complicated, and I should point out there is some ambiguity in the rule books here and there. I wish the rules would have been a little bit clearer in some places, but generally, the game is fairly easy to learn and fairly easy to play. There's so much going on in this game. There's so many choices, and there's so many rules you can add to bring a level of realism that you don't really have to play with if you don't want to. It's just a fun tactical maneuvering naval game, and it's a dice chucker. I love dice chuckers. I love games like that, and it's just a whole lot of fun. I really liked Armada Invincible. It doesn't replace Leviathans for me. Leviathan still has some fun things I like, but I really do like Armada Invincible. It brings something really, really fun, some historical flavor, and good gameplay to the tabletop. So the recommendation for the discriminating gamer for Armada Invincible is buy it! Thank you once again for joining us today on The Discriminating Gamer. As always, we ask you to please leave a comment here on YouTube, on Board Game Geek, on thediscriminatinggamer.com, or on our Facebook page. Please, please, please like us on Facebook and subscribe to us on YouTube. We are The Discriminating Gamer. And you know, I still don't know the difference between port and starboard. I'm trying to figure that out, and it's port and starboard? Port and starboard? Starboard's right, isn't it? I don't know.
Please somebody help me on my feet again. And I don't know where I'm going, and I don't know where I've been. Please somebody help me on the solid ground. It's a long time, and I'll be dying. Once a year I wind up in the band.
Did you ever have any bad seeds? Did you ever have any kids?
Oh, yes, of course, yes.
What did you do with the bad seeds?
Well, they're just in the bottom of the bay. I mean, you can't save all of them.
You drown.
But, well, I mean, I put
Like
them in there.
an unwanted kitten, you just put it in a bag.